So on to the next part, which is kind of about the future and advice you might give. So what are your future aspirations? It's quite a big question.
For me, the obvious one would be to finish, get the degree, complete the apprenticeship. But I don't know, find a role which suits me, become further integrated into the business, I was gonna say, like, also have feel like having a good amount of knowledge, gaining enough knowledge to be able to confidently, speak with customers even further, just developing on knowledge. That would be my sort of goals at the minute. Nothing directly for me being like, okay, that's the role I want. I'm not like, I don't want to be CEO, for example, or whatever. But it's not like in 3 years' time I'm going to be CEO. But it's more like, just further development for myself.
Yeah, I'd agree with Dan there probably. I think finding a place in the business where I really enjoy my role, because our apprenticeship is the same with Dan's and all, is we're given the opportunity to rotate around the business and find a part that suits us. And we've got another 2 years to do that. So I feel that's the most important thing to me right now, is finding somewhere in the business where I think I have an opportunity to have an impact and enjoy what I'm doing.
I think it's a lot of short-term goals until the end of the apprenticeship. So it's a lot of personal development, and then having little impacts on the business here and there, and then just gaining experience in different successful people in the company who you get to collaborate with, to then try out different roles and see where you actually fit.
Same for me as well, in that the obvious short-term goal is to finish the apprenticeship and find where I want to end up. But of course, at that point, there'll be potential long-term goals that will appear as I go through the placements in the next few years and decide where I want to end up.
So it sounds like a lot more personal growth and learning along the way, and finding the kind of niche that you fit into in Siemens, and the bit that you're really interested in, where you can make an impact. So that brings us to our final question of the day. What advice would you give to any budding engineers that might be watching this today?
I'd say, personally, have a good look at everything before you make a decision. There's engineering itself, if maybe you don't want to be an engineer right now, but you enjoy problem solving skills and you don't realize maybe how that will come into it. There's so much different areas within engineering. There's so many different opportunities to be able to find. There's civil engineering, which we don't have much to do with, but buildings, etc. There's so many different paths to go into, that have a good look at all the different opportunities available to you and paths. And then also have a look at universities, and open days can be informative, that's the word. But then also have a good look at apprenticeships as well.
I'd say pretty much the same as Ben says. Engineering is an absolutely massive area. Like he says, we've got civil, but then you've of course got industry, there's water engineering, there's space engineering. It's such a massive, broad area that it's worth looking at areas. But if you know a certain area, you might want to look more into that, because even within a simple area, there might be little things that can be looked at separately. And as Ben said, consider both uni and apprenticeships, because they've both got their pros and cons, and it might feed better for a certain person.
And that perfectly links onto us, because, for example, if you spoke to us lot maybe 6 years ago and told us about the products that we're now working with, wouldn't have a clue. If you said to us oh, what's this particular one of the things we work with is a PLC. If you asked us 5 years ago, you're like, what's that? But we use it every day now, so it is it's such a vast industry, and engineering comes in all shapes and forms. I guess it's at an early stage, just about getting informed and understanding. When you're early on in your career, you're not going to know everything, and you don't know where you're going to go into. So it's just about going in with an open mind, I'd say. It's just because you do it, and even if you say you do an apprenticeship in a certain area or a degree in a certain area, it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll fall into a role which is super technical. You could fall into a sales role, for example. So for example, there's a bunch of people, we have graduates who come to Siemens, and a lot of them don't even end in a traditionally engineering role. They may end up in a sales role. So it's not necessarily the case where you don't need to be a certain type of person. You don't need to be feel like you need to be super technical, because it's just you'll fall into different areas. So I'd say my advice in that whole midst of like that explanation was like go with an open mind.
Yeah, I think mine's pretty much very similar. I think my advice is literally, you don't have to be an expert. Like, you're not supposed to know everything when you're leaving college or you're leaving school. And I think even though there's a lot of like engineering type jobs, so there's like obviously the mechanical, all the ones they've named aerospace, there's still roles within engineering companies. So even though Siemens is massively like an engineering tech company, there's marketing roles, sales roles, business development strategies. So I think looking into like all the different opportunities and feeling like reaching out to anyone you can.
Engineering feels like a really good springboard.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
I think like it's because you can have the technical knowledge and it's there, but you, like I say, like, as all is saying as well, like you don't need to necessarily go in. Like there's a traditional like perception of what an engineer is and what you'll do after an engineering degree. You could do nothing to do with that. You could end up coming to Siemens and then 5 years later be working completely business orientated. So
Yeah.
it's a really good starting point, I think, because it makes you valuable. Engineering is really, becoming an engineer, learning how to problem solve, stuff like that is a really good skill, and people and employers like that. But just because you do an engineering doesn't necessarily mean you'll definitely become an engineer. I personally think the skills that you gain from being an engineer or learning to become an engineer, should I say, is a really good starting point for other roles.
Lots of good advice there. Keep an open mind, loads of transferable skills in engineering too. There's so many options in that world, so many routes that you could go down. Cool. Well, I think that's everything. Thank you so much for your time today. I hope that this is useful to anyone watching it, and hopefully there's some good little nuggets of wisdom that you can take away today. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.